Good afternoon. Welcome to this short course on understanding dependent arising or dependent origination. So my name is Tenzin Palzang. We'll start with first doing some prayers to settle our mind. So today we will recite the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. This particular sutra is very important in the Buddhist context because it is a sutra that covers all the teachings of the Buddha, and explicitly it talks about the wisdom aspect of Buddha's teaching, and implicitly it covers the whole of the path of Buddha's teaching, all the way until enlightenment. So we recite this usually before the class so that it can have an imprint, it leaves an imprint in our mind, so that helps us to eventually be able to develop the wisdom to understand selflessness or shunyata, because that's a very important aspect of the Buddhist teaching. So let's recite together in English. I prostrate to the higher triple gem. Thus there are here at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on the mass of Auchus mountain in Rajagya, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aya Alakatishvara looked upon the very practice of profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aya Alakatishvara: how should any son of the lineage tree who wishes to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aya Alakatishvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no my element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattva dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the ending point of Nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell the three times also manifestly, completely awakened to the unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it's not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha shariputra. The bodhisattva should aim in the perfection of wisdom like that. Then Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commanded the bodhisattva Mahasattva Ayalakshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the perfection of wisdom just as we have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the venerable Sharavatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Ayalakshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. Next, we take refuge together, and together with bodhicitta, generating the mind that is determined to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Recite 3 times. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So now we do a short meditation just to calm our mind. Let our mind settle down a little bit to prepare our mind so that it is in a state to ready to receive the teachings, right? And then after that, we set the motivation for coming here to listen to the teaching. All right, so I'm sure most of you have done meditation before, so just settle down in the meditation posture. Main thing is straighten your back. You can keep your eyes closed if you wish. And simply allow your attention to rest on your breathing. That means just become aware of your body breathing. With each in-breath, you become aware that you are breathing in. And as your body breathes out, you are also fully aware that you are breathing out. So in this way, simply allow your attention to rest on the awareness of your breathing. Breathing in, I'm aware. Breathing out, I'm aware. simply relax. Just keep your awareness on your breath. If you find that you're thinking of something else, release that thought and bring your attention back to your breath. Now that your mind becomes quite calm, think to yourself, the most meaningful way for us to live our life is to use it to benefit others. And the best way for us to benefit others is to help them, guide them, move away from suffering, and lead them to the ultimate state of happiness, the state of liberation and enlightenment. In order for ourselves to be able to truly do that in the most perfect way, we ourselves must first attain this fully enlightened state of Buddhahood. For that purpose, in order to truly benefit all sentient beings, we are here today to listen to the profound teaching of the Buddha. And through listening to the teachings of the Buddha, we develop the wisdom from which we continue to contemplate, and we develop deeper wisdom, and then we put it to practice. And through this process, eventually we will reach this fully enlightened state of Buddhahood, so that we can truly benefit all sentient beings. This is the purpose of our life, and this is the motivation why we are gathered here today, to listen to this teaching. So in this way, adjust the motivation. Okay, so once again, welcome to this teaching, short teaching on understanding dependent origination. The teaching itself, here what you'll see is the outline of what we're going to cover over the next few weeks. Firstly, session 1, that is today. It is going to be introduction, and the topics we'll be covering will be talking about the awakening to dependent origination, and also cover briefly the Four Noble Truths, karma, and also impermanence, how they relate to dependent origination. Then next week, we will be doing the interdependency of all phenomena. We will touch on a little bit on the 12 links of dependent origination, and then we look into the very broad sense of dependent origination, how all things are always interconnected in order to come into existence. Then the third week, we're going to do dependent origination means selflessness. We start to look into emptiness, shunyata. Right? This is always a very mysterious topic. What is selflessness? So from dependent origination, we see how that is linked to this very important topic or subject of selflessness. We will look at how things appear and how they exist in reality. Then session 4, we start to look into selflessness specifically of the person. That means the I, selflessness of the person. We'll be doing meditation, short meditations on looking for the person. Then session 5, we broaden it to start to look at the selflessness of phenomena, where during the session we will also be doing short meditations on how to look at things as they are. Right? Then session 6, we'll come to this part as to cutting the root of samsara. By the time we have covered session 4 and 5, we would find that, hey, something doesn't seem to be right. We seem to be quite ignorant of a lot of things, right? And that is the root of samsara. So how do we cut it? So then we will be talking about the Eightfold Path of the Noble, using that as a foundation to explain how do we get out of samsara, how do we attain liberation, focusing specifically on the wisdom aspect of the Eightfold Path of the Noble. Then on session 7, it comes to joyful wisdom, meaning that then what? After you have listened to the teachings, how do we actually use it in our daily life? How do we live our life with this understanding of dependent origination? So in this session 7, we talk about how we start to shift our perspective at looking at things. Instead of looking at things as in a view which is not real, then we start to look at the reality of all things. Then we also talk about developing the mindfulness of dependent origination in our daily life. These are also meditation topics. And the last one, session 8, is question mark. Has not been decided what we're going to cover on that session. It depends. It depends on the response of this group. If by then, by session 7, you find that only 5 people are coming, then session 8 will be, we don't need session 8, okay, because there's nothing else to talk about. But on the other hand, if there are a lot of interest on some other related areas on this topic, then there will be session 8. So session 8, the existence, the coming about of session 8 is dependent on session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is the meaning of dependent origination. Class finished already. I've already explained how things arise. All right. So session 8, we'll see how. I already mentioned to Edmund that let's see how, okay? Everything is dependent arising. Nothing is fixed in the whole world. So this will give you an idea of what you're going to cover over the next 7 or 8 weeks. Okay? Any question on this? Or any area where you find, hey, how come we're not covering this particular topic or whatever it is? You should raise it now so that if it's appropriate that I can add it in. So it seems okay, huh? I think it's quite comprehensive as a very brief introduction. Remember, this course is only a very brief introduction because the topic of dependent origination and the topic of emptiness or selflessness is very, very vast, very, very profound, right? So what we are trying to do over the next 7, 8 weeks is just to give you an idea. It's like a taste of what it is to set your mind thinking so that you may, if you are interested, you may actually go in to explore and study deeper into the philosophy of these topics. Okay, so session 1, going to start. The sessions will be such that I will talk for about 45 minutes maybe, and 45 minutes, and there will be question and answer session. Right? Edmund also specifically requested that we should have a longer question and answer session for you to ask question and for me to think about your question. Doesn't mean that I can answer all your questions, but just give me time to think about your questions. Right? I will attempt to answer them, but it is, as I said, the topic is very wide ranging. So, okay, introduction. Just the awakening. So we all know about the Shakyamuni Buddha's life story, right? The Buddha attained enlightenment in Bodhgaya under the Bodhi tree. And when the Buddha attained enlightenment, he said, or he proclaimed that I'm awakened, I'm the awakened one. So awakened from what? We also awake every morning, right? Probably we awake not even once, not just once a day. Maybe a lot of times you're just doing things, then we like doze off in the office. Then your boss walk in, talk. Then, yes boss. Then you awake again. So many times we awake from our sleep or whatever it is. So what's so special about this awakening? The Buddha is the awakened one. Awakened from what? That we must ask. So when Buddha awakened, he awakened from his confusion, from his ignorance. That's what he awoke from. So what is this? So this seems to be a very important aspect. We awake from our dreams, right? We sleep, then we woke up, oh, I just dreamed. So here, Buddha awoke from his confusion or ignorance. I will use the word confusion, ignorance interchangeably in the course. So what did Buddha realized when he awoke from his confusion. So it says that Buddha realized the interdependency of existence, the ultimate nature of which is selflessness. He awakened to the wisdom that decisively ends all confusion. So that means during Buddha's meditation under the Bodhi tree, he was meditating on not just life per se, not just death and rebirth. Remember when Buddha was a prince, as Prince Siddhartha, what made him left the palace was that he saw the birth, old age, sickness, and death, and the mannequin. Okay, so that prompted him to leave the palace to find out, is there a way to end this cycle of birth and death? That's the reason he left his wife, his child, and his whole country or palace, just to look for this solution for the benefit of all of us. So when Buddha was in meditation, he realized that life itself are somehow, the whole cycle of existence is interconnected, interdepending. That's the reason, that's the meaning of the interdependency of existence. And when he realized that things are all interconnected, interrelated to come into being, to come into existence, then he realized that the ultimate nature of this whole cycle of existence, the ultimate nature of all phenomena, the ultimate nature is selflessness, lack of inherent existence of a self. So this is what he came to realize. And when he realized that, that was the wisdom. And that's what, that wisdom itself overcome all the confusion, clear up all the confusion that he had before his enlightenment. And with that wisdom, he awoke from his confusion. That's the meaning of the Buddha proclaiming himself that I am the awakened one. Right? So this is the meaning. So Buddha awoke to dependent origination and attained liberation. Because Buddha looked into dependent origination and through that developed the wisdom of selflessness, he attained liberation. So this is a very special insight which Buddha has developed, has developed. And this insight, that means dependent origination and selflessness, is the foundation of everything else the Buddha subsequently taught. So understand that, all right. Many of us have studied Buddhism, attended a lot of classes, but somehow, some of us may not be able to pinpoint to the core essence of what Buddha has taught. If your friends ask you, hey, you are Buddhist for many years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, what is Buddha's teaching? Very likely we may be talking about, Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. Very good. Buddha taught us the Noble Eightfold Path. Oh, that's also very good. Buddha taught about this, taught about that, and the whole series of that. But what is the core of that? In one word or two words, can you summarize what is the core essence of Buddha's teaching? You must know. As Buddhists, we must know. If we do not know, then we could spend our whole life just going around listening to a lot of teachings, studying here, studying there. And then at the end of our life, when we are dying on the bed, dying, they were wondering, I study a lot of things about the Buddha's teaching. The whole list. How much teachings Buddha gave? Supposedly to be 84,000 teachings. Just a figure, that's not the exact. It's just a figure. 84,000 teachings. Again, how you summarize the essence of that? If at the time of our death we still don't know, and we're just going around studying that I must do this, I must do that. Not only study, we do a lot of practices. Depending on the traditions, the Buddhist traditions that you are following. Some Buddhist traditions focus a lot on studies. Some Buddhist traditions do a lot of pujas and a lot of rituals and all that. Are there any differences? Of course there are. But then when you want to summarize it, what is the actual essence of that? They are one and the same. Only one core essence, and that is emptiness. Emptiness. So, therefore, all the Buddha's teaching can be summarized to one word: emptiness. Including all those teachings that Buddha taught about loving kindness, compassion, all this. The core of that is talk about emptiness. Because without that, without realizing that essence of the teachings, we end up practicing, as a Buddhist, we end up practicing just like any other orthodox spiritual traditions. Loving kindness, you think only Buddhists got that? All the other orthodox religion they have. And sometimes shy to say, their compassion and kindness, loving kindness is much greater than Buddhists. You check, real or not? Then, what do we mean when we say we are Buddhists? And what do we mean when we say we are learning Buddhism and practicing Buddhism? How do you differentiate the Buddhist teaching from the teachings of other spiritual traditions? What is so special about the teaching of the Buddha? That speciality, that thing is dependent origination and selflessness. So I emphasize on this a lot, just to make sure that you all understand how important this particular topic it is to us, all of us, as Buddhists, and also to non-Buddhists. For anyone whose mind is very open, who say that I'm not a Buddhist, can I accept this thinking, this way of, this philosophy? Yes, of course. And it's not just a philosophy. A philosophy is just some words you put together. But what we are talking about here, dependent origination and selflessness, is a fact. It's not an alternate fact. It is a fact that cannot be changed. So therefore, every one of us, whether we are Buddhist or non-Buddhist, we can use this principle and use this principle to change our life. Use this principle to look at our own life and develop a new approach in our lives, leading to greater happiness and greater calmness and peacefulness in our lives. So that's the reason why Buddha uses as a foundation all the 84,000 teachings given by Buddha as a foundation on emptiness, dependent origination. So therefore, in order to heal all beings, in order to benefit all of us, Shakyamuni Buddha proclaimed dependent origination, the heart of the teachings. This is what Buddha said, so that all his teaching, when it's summarized, it is dependent origination. And that dependent origination is the peerless reason for ascertaining emptiness. Here means that if you want to talk about emptiness, you cannot run away from talking about dependent origination. And when you talk about dependent origination, you cannot run away from the topic of emptiness. These are directly related. So far, okay? Just to set the background. Then here, Buddha said this, or proclaimed this. Buddha said that ignorance is the very root of all troubles in this transitory world. That means this cyclic existence. What is the root? What is the cause of all our problems? It is ignorance. And when Buddha awoke from his meditation, he cleared his confusion or ignorance. So Buddha knew that ignorance is the very root of all the trouble of this world. Then how do we get rid of this ignorance? Because as long as we have ignorance, we continue to suffer. And we don't want to suffer. None of us wish to suffer. So how do we get rid of this ignorance? So ignorance are averted by understanding dependent origination, which the Buddha has taught. So straight away from this verse itself, it tells us about the path already. Just now I mentioned that after hearing all this, then we will want to know, how do I attain liberation? What is the path? So this gives the gist of the path. Ignorance is the problem. How do you cut ignorance? By understanding dependent origination. You don't attain liberation by just doing pujas. You don't attain liberation by doing all the other things. You attain liberation by understanding dependent origination. Wow! With this, if you hear it for the first time, if you really understood what we have been talking about over the last 2 slides, you'll say, now I know. I already very clearly pointed how to get out of samsara, how to end all suffering. It is through the understanding of dependent origination. So with this understanding, with this knowledge, you think dependent origination, this topic, important or not?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know why I say thank you to that participant who said yes? Because we are doing video recording. All right, you nod your head, the camera is not pointing at you, pointing at me, so they cannot see you nodding the head, so it's no point. So then at least it's recorded on sound. Yes, thank you very much. Maybe we should have the camera panning and looking at everybody nodding the head. Okay, that's joking aside. But that's why it's stressed that it's so important that we should study, we should understand what is dependent origination. And on that basis, not only study and understand, we should apply in our life. And immediately you find the effect beneficial. Lessen our anger, lessen our attachment, lessen our pride, lessen everything. So this is the point. All right, so now just give some ideas what is dependent origination. So dependent origination in Sanskrit is pratya samutpada. Pratya samutpada. That's in Sanskrit. Dependent origination. It is the interdependent relationship that is the nature of all phenomena. Interdependent relationship we know, all right? It's the father, that's the son, or the wife, whatever it is, or the family, for instance, the family, that each one is related to each other. We know that it's like interdependent relationship. But that's not all. It says here, interdependent relationship, that is the nature of all phenomena. When we use the example of saying that, oh, the family, there's a father, there's a mother, there's a son, there's a daughter, and then cousin, all that. That itself, from in terms of names, that is actually not the nature. It's like you just say, okay, this is the cousin, this is the friend. But here we talk about interdependent relation is the nature of all phenomena. The word nature indicates that that is like a law, natural law. It's not a law set by the government, not a law set by somebody divine upstairs, but it's a natural law. So when it's a natural law, it means it applies to everybody, whether you believe it or not. The natural law of gravity applies to everybody, whether you know what is the meaning of gravity or not. You go up, you just drop down, finish. That's the natural law of gravity. So similarly, the nature of all phenomena is dependent relationship. So this idea is the core of all Buddhist philosophy. The principle of dependent origination is that, now explaining a little bit in detail, the principle of dependent origination is that when anything arises dependent on particular conditions, it also ceases with the ceasing of those conditions. It's not just merely depending on this, then this come about. We must also understand that since something depends on this, therefore it comes about. And when this condition is no longer there, then that result also will not be there. Okay? We experience it a lot. Sometimes we don't see it. When we come into possession of some money, we are very happy. All right? Then when the money is gone, we are very sad. We should not be, if you understand this statement. When the condition is there, then we may become we may come in the possession of some money. Then when the condition is not there, then money also will be gone. That is interdependent relationship. So immediately you can see that it is applicable to our lives, not just in theory. All right? So in this Rice-Seedling Sutra, Rice-Seedling Sutra, actually the first part of the sutra, I'll show it later. This is the later part of the sutra. What happened was that in this sutra, just to give you an idea, in this sutra, Buddha was in Rajgir, in Voucher's Peak, where Buddha gave the teachings of the Prajnaparamita Sutra. So one day Buddha was there, and then Buddha looked at the rice seedling. That means the small little plant that will grow into the rice plant, whatever it is. So then Buddha gave a teaching, very short teaching. Who was there? A lot of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas was there. A lot of Arahats were there. And of course, Shariputra was there. Shariputra was out among all the disciples of Buddha. Shariputra was the most intelligent. That's why Shariputra was also involved in the Prajnaparamita Sutra. Ananda was not so intelligent. Ananda was just can remember, but Shariputra is the sharpest. The person, the disciple, has most wisdom. All right, very very sharp mind. So Buddha gave this teaching of the Rice-Seedling Sutra. As I say, the beginning part later on will show. Then after Buddha, just very short, just one verse only. Then Shariputra, although he was very sharp, great wisdom, Shariputra, Thiabo, cannot understand. Imagine Shariputra cannot understand. That is on dependent origination. Then what do you expect us to be? So if you don't understand, what I mean understand means not just in terms of words, but really, really, very profoundly understand the whole workings of dependent origination. Then tell yourself, even Shariputra needs some other explanation to help. So don't get discouraged if you don't understand, all right? Don't get discouraged if you start to get lost and say, what are you talking about? Because later on we're going to talk a bit something much, much profound. Just like in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, there's no eyes, no ears, no nose. What are you talking about? So all these things we have to understand to really get the true meaning of dependent origination. So anyway, so what happened was that Shariputra, Thiabola, and then cannot understand what Buddha said. And Buddha gave the teachings, just one verse, and then after that Buddha kept quiet. Zip. Don't talk anymore. Then Shariputra didn't know what to do. So he went and looked for Maitreya. He went to look for Maitreya, went to Maitreya's place and looked for Maitreya. He said, hey, Maitreya, Buddha gave this teaching. What's the meaning of that? So, therefore, the first line, what is the process of dependent occurrence? This is the question posed by Shariputra to Maitreya. Shariputra is asking Maitreya, this dependent occurrence means dependent arising. What is the process? How does it work? All right? So second part is the answer given by Maitreya to Shariputra. So Maitreya said, it is like this. Something is present, something else comes from it. From that, something else comes. That is the teaching of dependent origination. If there's something present, something else comes from it. From it, something else comes from it, and from that, something else comes. So this is how it is, right? Very simple aspect of dependent origination. So it says here that the explanation as given in the sutra. At first, there is a cause which produces an effect. There's a cause. Then it produces the effect. That effect in turn will produce something else. So therefore, there is a process in which different element occurs in dependence upon one another. The presence of causes and conditions produce an effect, and that effect will produce something else. Clear or not? This is very straightforward, no? Very, very straightforward. Dependent origination, this statement here is the simplest of the dependent origination explanation. Very, very straightforward. You got this is the cause, give you the effect. That effect itself can become, will become a cause for another effect. And that's how it goes. Okay? So this is one line straight from this side going to that side. So very, very straightforward. If you don't understand, you can ask, okay? Some of this is that you listen to it, you may not, the question may not come about. So you need to go back and contemplate. You need to contemplate a little bit. Then only you may find that, hey, there are some things which I don't understand. Okay. So then if one can understand the intricate relationship of all phenomena, and particularly of one's own emotional and conceptual patterns, then the cycle of suffering can be broken. This is how Just now we talk about why we care about from this is the cause, that's the effect. That effect becomes a cause and bring about another effect, and that effect brings another effect. Why do we worry about all this? All right? Doesn't affect my life, ma? No, it does. It says here, if you can understand the intricate relationship of phenomena, and particularly our own emotional and conceptual pattern. Our own emotion comes from that. Our conceptual patterns, the way our mind construct things comes from there. Then, with that understanding, we can break the cycle of suffering. And that's how we go about. We talk about, remember Buddhists gave the teaching for that purpose of helping us to stop all suffering. So how do we stop all suffering? Buddha had already said, ignorance the cause. In order to break this suffering itself, or in order to eliminate ignorance, you must understand dependent origination. So this is how it is. Root of suffering, ignorance. So an in-depth analysis of the process of suffering also reveals that the notion of an intrinsically, the independently existing self is at the bottom of it. We talk about ignorance, it's a cause. Ignorance of what? Confusion. Confused of what? At the bottom of this confusion, at the bottom of this ignorance, there's this notion that there's an I, a self, which is intrinsically, independently existing. These names, terms, we will explain later, right? There is an I. That's the gist of it, is that there is an I, and we believe it, all right? We believe it. This is considered to be a false notion. It is not true. Because if we will look at it directly, since upon direct examination through meditation and analysis, such a self cannot be found. Although we have this idea, this feeling that there's an I, yet this is not a true notion. We have the feeling that there's a really truly existing I. But this is not true. This is our confusion. Not knowing the truth, that is our ignorance. And this is what we need to eliminate. And how we eliminate that? By understanding dependent origination. So, ignorance is the belief in this myth of the self. And because we believe there's an I, there's a self, then the dualistic thinking comes about. Because we think there's an I, therefore there's the other. There's me, therefore there's you. Right? So, because we believe that there's an I, therefore, or me, therefore, you comes about. And since there's a me, I must protect my interests. On that basis, all the emotional reaction of attachment and aversion comes about. This is more difficult to understand, but just take it as it is now. This is the main cause. We have the ignorance. Our ignorance or confusion is that we believe that there's an I, a truly existing I. And once we believe there's an I must do what? I must protect my own self-interest. And anything that has nothing to do with me, I must protect it. If you understand this statement, you can see all the world's problem. Whether it's a problem of Trump or the problem of Qatar or the state, the oil state Qatar, all those problems, and all the problems in the world, every one of them you can understand. It's all included in here. It all arises because of this. So now you can see, again, so powerful. You understand this, you understand all problems. Then you can stand up and proclaim, this is the problem. But the bigger problem is that nobody will want to believe you. Buddha already proclaimed that. 2,500 years ago. We are still sitting here half believing, we as Buddhists half believing it is true. Those who are not looking at this completely don't believe that it is true. That is a bigger problem that we are facing. And that is the situation we are in samsara. So because of this, because we believe there's I, then there's a you, there's a me, there's a you, and on that basis, attachment, anger, jealousy, pride all arise, and this give us, because of this afflictive emotion of anger and jealousy and all this, we start to do action, all right? And this action is called karma. Negative actions, you got negative results. Positive actions, you get positive results. And these are sources of suffering. Whether it's positive karma or negative karma, they are sources of suffering. So this is how it comes about. The origin of which is ignorance. So the idea of non-self is another crucial idea presented in the first turning of the Dharma. When Buddha attained enlightenment, for the first 7 weeks, he did not give any teachings because Buddha attained enlightenment, right? Just now we said that, and he realized dependent origination, which means that selflessness. Very, very chim, you know. So after Buddha attained enlightenment, he decided, don't teach. Nobody will understand. Therefore, Buddha did not teach for 7 weeks. 49 days he did not teach, until the Brahmas came and then requested Buddha to give the teachings. Because Buddha felt that it was really quite difficult to understand, and which is true. If it's easy to understand, I think all of us, we will already attain liberation. We are still hanging around here, right? So it is true, but that doesn't mean that we cannot do it. So then, on this basis, the idea of non-self, or rather, when Buddha gave the first teaching, what is Buddha's first teaching? Four Noble Truths. All right, first official teaching. According to the story, Buddha gave some teaching on the way when he was walking from Bodh to Sana, Deer Park. Then on the way he met, I think, 2 brothers. He gave some short teachings, but those not counted. The first official teaching, the first turning of the wheel given by Buddha was on the Four Noble Truths. And that insight has this idea of non-self. So this concept again formed the basis of all future further developments of Buddha's thought. So Buddha used the principle of dependent origination to understand human suffering and to understand and how to bring that suffering to an end. So we talk about what is suffering, what is the cause of suffering, what is the cessation of suffering. All this is dependent or based on the principle of dependent origination. So according to the principle, if suffering depends on something else to come about, that thing is eliminated, then suffering will come to an end. Just now we already said, right, in the Rice-Seedling Sutra, if this thing comes about because of this cause, because there's a cause, therefore this comes a result. All right, this result is because of this cause. Now when this cause, the condition is changed, when this cause is not there, the result also will not be not there. Similarly, there's suffering. Suffering comes from arises due to some cause. And when you remove the cause itself, suffering will be eliminated. So you do not, with this understanding, you know where to pinpoint, you know where to look for the culprit. You don't look for the culprit in terms of the suffering. Most of us, we say that suffering, right? We are unhappy. So all of us also try to eliminate suffering. But the way we eliminate suffering is that we try to eliminate suffering as it is. We are looking at the suffering which is the result. What Buddha is saying is that, hey, look, suffering is the result of a cause. So if you want to end suffering, don't just go and try to end suffering per se, but rather you end the cause. Once you end the cause, then suffering will automatically disappear. Make sense or not? If it makes sense, then you all understand what is Four Noble Truths. If it doesn't make sense, then you better go back and study it more, all right, on what is the Four Noble Truths. So, how important is this insight? He says that the importance of this insight is emphasized in this saying, the one who sees dependent origination sees the Dharma. One who sees the Dharma sees dependent origination. So those of you, or those of us, don't say those of you as though like you are the only one. Those of us, including me, who claim that we know Dharma, we understand Dharma, we can explain Dharma, we must do some self-check. When we say we know Dharma, within Dharma itself, do we see dependent origination or not? When we talk Dharma, when we explain Dharma, are we being supported, our ideas are being supported by dependent origination or not? If it does not, if you talk Dharma without referring to dependent origination, then you are not seeing Dharma. Now we can see how Dharma, our study of Dharma, our understanding of Dharma is how closely linked to this idea of dependent origination. If you see dependent origination, if you say you understand dependent origination, then you can claim you understand Dharma. If you say you truly understand Dharma, as a fact, then you would have understood dependent origination. This is the statement here. So, Four Noble Truths. So the first teaching Buddha gave was on dependent origination. Most of us, we say that Buddha gave first teaching Four Noble Truths. Actually, Buddha's first teaching was dependent origination. But he gave the teaching of dependent origination through explaining Four Noble Truths. Get that? I think most of us also will think Buddha's first teaching was a Four Noble Truths. No, Buddha's teaching was dependent origination. That's the essence of his teaching. But he used dependent origination to explain the topic on suffering, Four Noble Truths. If you can remember that, and then when you talk to your friends about Buddha's first teaching, very impressive, you know. All your friends say, is it? I thought Buddha only gave the first teaching Four Noble Truths. No, Buddha gave first teaching dependent origination. But he explained using from the perspective of suffering. Because dependent origination, you can use this principle to explain everything because all phenomena are dependent origination. So Buddha used dependent origination as a principle and used that to examine suffering. And there comes about the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. So therefore, through the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, Buddha explained the cause of suffering, the possibility of cessation of suffering, and the conditions required for the cessation of this cause of suffering. Suffering, causes of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the conditions required to cease this cause of suffering. Remember, we are not ceasing suffering. We cease the cause of the suffering. When you stop the cause of suffering, then suffering automatically disappears. So, Four Noble Truths, you all know, I will not explain further. The Four Noble Truths, true suffering, which is the result, true origin of suffering, this is the cause. True origin of suffering is the cause, and the result is suffering. So therefore, you look at the suffering itself, the cause of suffering. Then true cessation of suffering, which is the result, that means a liberation. And then how do you go about doing it? The cause is the practice of the path of cessation of suffering. So it is cause, result, cause, result. And this is the essence of the Four Noble Truths. Buddha's teaching, being a very wise man, Buddha's teaching is very much like the TCM approach, traditional Chinese medicine approach. Look at the cause, not the result. You got headache, don't just go and eat Panadol to cure your headache. that only cures the result. And when the Panadol effect, after 2 hours, 3 hours gone, your headache will come back because the suffering is still there. You look at the cause. What caused you to have the headache? Then go and eliminate the cause. TCM's whole approach comes from there. Dependent origination. This understanding, next time when you have something, of course you go for the Panadol. It gives you immediate result to clear your head. But don't stop there. You must think of what? Dependent origination. The cause of the headache has not been eliminated. You better go and find the cause of a headache. All right? So that is how we use dependent origination in our daily life also. Okay, Four Noble Truths, you know. So the process of Four Noble Truths can further be understood with Buddha's teaching known as the 12th link of dependent origination. Next week, very quickly, I will cover that also. Because that's not our purpose of this course. But just to bring out the idea that dependent origination covers Four Noble Truths, it covers 12 link of dependent arising. It covers not only that, it covers everything else. All right? It says here, the root cause of the cycle of suffering is like ignorance concerning dependent origination. I keep on repeating this. So when we talk about ignorance, there are two main aspects of ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of the working of karma. And ignorance of the ultimate selfless nature of all phenomena. These are the two ignorance that cause us to remain in samsara. So the first one is ignorance. If you don't know the working of karma, then you suffer. But even though you are aware of the working of karma, if you are still ignorant of the ultimate nature of all phenomena, which is selflessness, if you are not aware of that, then you still suffer, right? So these are the two ignorance we have to work on. So the working of karma, just to let you, again, all of you know what's karma, so I'm not explaining that. So karma is the law of cause and effect. Again, it is a law, it applies to everybody. Whether you believe or not, it applies to that. When a cause is created, then an appropriate result will surely follow. So because, this important point, because karma is dependent origination. Karma means what? Cause and result, right? So straight away you can see already, karma, when we talk about karma, we are talking about dependent origination. There must be a cause. Therefore, with that cause, you get the result. Now, because karma is dependent origination, then therefore, there is a possibility to change by applying purification practices and all that, and in which case the consequences may not absolutely certain to occur. That's the reason why we talk about karma can be changed. In that aspect, or rather the results of karma can be changed. Because earlier we already remember the saying that if this thing comes about because of this is a cause. Because of this cause, then this is a result. Now, if I change the cause, when the condition is no longer there, then the result also will change, will cease. So if the condition is not there, then the result will cease. So we have created karma. We have the cause. By creating karma, that's the cause, and then there's a result which may come later, right? So on this basis, if we were to remove the cause, then the results will not happen. On that basis, there is a possibility that we can purify our negative karma. Some people don't believe that. Some people has the opinion or hold the view that karma cannot be purified. Once you're done, therefore you must go through. From certain point of view, that is true. You must know at which phase is happening. But when the result has not ripened, there is a possibility with the proper methods, there's a possibility for you to change the condition, then the result will not come about. That gives us hope, With this understanding of dependent origination, that gives us hope. Otherwise, very siong, Since beginner's time until now, how much negative karma we have done? Countless. And how much more suffering we have to continue waiting for this negative karma that we have created in the past to ripen? Countless. When you think like this, it becomes very depressing, Really very depressing, So much so that really no hope. Thinking of ourselves, really no hope. I'm such a bad person, no hope. But when you understand dependent origination, because there's a cause, because we have created the cause, there will be a result. If the result has already ripened, cannot be helped. If the result has not been ripened, then if I were to change the condition of the cause, then the result will change. That means, got hope lah. That's how the hope comes in, through your understanding of dependent origination. It's not like just, Buddha. I'm so bad, I've done this, done that. When I was young, I steal this thing, I scold this person, I do a lot of bad things. Buddha, help me lah, purify me lah, help. Like that. Not so simple like that. All right? This is like blind faith. We must remember, Buddhism is very scientific. So the explanation, if our results, our negative karma can be purified, the explanation is through dependent origination. Depending on, we have done negative action, therefore negative results will appear. Depending on, we are able to change that condition, then the results will also change. With that, you go about doing your practice as a Buddhist. Full of energy, full of hope. Hope is not just false hope. Hope on the basis that there is a logic. There's a clear understanding that it is workable, it is possible. It is not just because I believe, therefore it is. But it is possible, and there's reasoning behind it. And with that sort of hope, your practice will become very solid. Otherwise, a lot of Buddhists, because the Buddhist way of teaching is always that you just pray, everything will be all right. Then after a while, you pray so much, but not doing it properly. Then when things still, all the bad things still come, you give up hope, You just leave Buddhism as it is, even though you have taken refuge and just jump ship and go and practice something else. That is very, very bad sort of situation. So how do we avoid that? By clear understanding of the Dharma. And how we understand Dharma? Earlier I said, you understand Dharma by understanding dependent origination. Nature of, then connected with dependent origination, we talk about impermanence. Buddha taught a lot of teachings on impermanence. So there are the 4 seals of the Dharma. One of the 4 seals will be that all compounded phenomena are dependent origination, therefore they are all impermanent. Keep this in mind. Very important teachings. When things change, we always feel very sad. Why change? Sometimes really very, very disappointed. When we lose something, when something is spoiled, we're so attached to it. When the relationship is broken, when we have to separate, we feel very sad. That is suffering. But if you understand, these are just compounded phenomena. Anything that gathers, coming together, is compounded. Therefore, it is dependent origination. Therefore, they are impermanent. On that basis, whatever thing that happens to your mind and your life, any changes that you have, we wish things to be permanent. We say, how I wish things will be like that forever. Don't talk like that. We can talk like that, but when things happen, you have the understanding. What more? It is not bad luck. It's just dependent origination. Because of this cause, therefore, we have that result. We enjoy, like old times. Then when this cause is no longer there, therefore that result is not there. impermanence. So no need to cry. We can cry lah, but not cry so much. We always will cry. We miss something. Oh, I want. Oh, I wish. Oh, I wish. But no need to bang hard and commit suicide. That sort of thing. It is impermanence. So the teaching of impermanence is the teaching of dependent origination. So here, all compounded things disintegrate. The end of accumulation is exhaustion. So the end of collecting all your money, become rich, end of it, you'll be poor. That's the teaching. So if you become bankrupt, no need to cry so much also. Okay? The end of gathering is separation. Same. All friends gather together, families gather together. End of it, we will be separated. Either through death, separated by death or whatever things. The end of ascent to the heights is descent to the depth. In your career, you may be climb up to the very top. The next moment you resign, that's the end of it. Right now, President Trump is right at the top. Not sure how long, but he may drop all the way down. So it is like that. If you go up, you will come down. We all know all this. When you go up, things will come down. A lot of these things we know. But if you were to use it to apply, understand the theory behind dependent origination and contemplate on it, it really helps in our life of not being attached to so many things, not having so much aversion or anger to the difficulty that we face in our life. The end of birth is death. So when we die, or when our loved ones die, no need to cry so much also. That's impermanence, dependent origination. Diamond Cutter Sutra says, a star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Conditioned things means condition. Things that comes about under certain condition. Means what? Dependent origination. That means when this condition is there, therefore this thing comes about. When these conditions are no longer there, these things will disappear. Or when the conditions change, something else will come about. So all this is dependent origination. So in the Diamond Cutter Sutra, Jingang Jing, the whole essence of which is on emptiness, selflessness. So Buddha is telling us, this is how we should see. See conditioned things as such. That means in our life, whatever we see, whatever we experience in our life, all these are conditioned things. It is something come together, therefore this happened. And when something, the conditions changes, then something disappears. We should look at our life is like this. You see an illusion, it's like illusion, a bubble. A bubble doesn't last forever. You just come and then it will disappear. A flash of lightning, things like this. We should learn to look at things like this. And we will explain this in our sixth or seventh session. Okay? So just ending, importance of understanding dependent origination. So a person who is still ensnared by false notion of self, the root cause of suffering, and is ignorant of the power of antidote, meditation on dependent origination and selflessness, although he may have a correct understanding of karma, which leads him to abandon non-virtues, he has not entirely overcome delusion. His desires still remain focused on cyclic existence. This points to our path of liberation, because on the sixth session, we're going to talk about the noble, the eightfold path of the noble, or noble eightfold path, right? The practices that we do. So, which talks of a lot of ethics, talks about the right living and all that sort of thing, right? Those are related to what? Karma. You must be ethics. Your life, you must live a life of morality. You must have right living and all that sort of thing. All this talk about karma. If you just merely focus on that alone, your rebirth, the results will be very good. But you will still be focused on cyclic existence. You cannot attain liberation. You cannot get out of samsara. Why? Because to get out of samsara requires you to do meditation on dependent origination and emptiness. And therefore, from here you already can see the Noble Eightfold Path, or the Eightfold Path of the Noble. You have to practice all 8, and not just the first few, which is easy. And say, I have no time to do meditative concentration, I cannot develop the right view, which is wisdom, all this too hard. I just focus on that. Not good enough, right? It is good, but not good enough if your objective is to attain liberation. So just keep that in mind. And that's why it's so important to understand dependent origination. Now come back to this Rice-Seedling Sutra. This is the first part. All right, this is the beginning of it. So when Buddha was looking at the seedling of the rice, then Buddha, the Bhagavan, said to the monk, he said, "O monks, he who completely, not just understand, completely, he who completely understands the process of dependent occurrence, understand what is the Dharma. He who understands what is the Dharma, understand what is Buddha, the enlightened state." Having spoken thus, the Buddha, the Bhagavan, fell silent. That was the teaching, the whole essence of the Seedling Sutra. He who completely understands the process of dependent occurrence. The process of dependent occurrence. That was the question asked by Shariputra to Maitreya. Shariputra asked Maitreya, "Hey Maitreya, please explain to me what is the process of dependent occurrence." That's what we discussed earlier. So that was asked. But the point here is that Buddha is saying that the person who understands completely the whole process of dependent origination, he will understand the Dharma. This we covered earlier already. The person who understands the dependent origination understands the Dharma. And the person who understands the Dharma will understand what is Buddha. Now do we know what is Buddha now? Oh, Buddha is Shakyamuni Buddha. That's all we understand. Buddha is not Shakyamuni Buddha. That's only a historical Buddha. Because we aim to become a Buddha. So we are not aiming to become Shakyamuni Buddha. So what is the Buddha? When we say we want to become a Buddha, what is the meaning of the Buddha? So if you want to know what's the meaning of the Buddha, the goal that we are aspiring to attain, that sort of state, then first you understand dependent origination. Then when you understand dependent origination, you understand Dharma. When you understand Dharma, you understand what is the enlightened state. Okay? So this is the teaching of the Buddha. That's why it is so important for us to understand dependent origination. What is the nature of the Buddha? Then you say, okay lah, although we are not there yet, but at least we are quite curious. What is this enlightened state? So Buddha said that, what is the nature of thus gone one? What's the nature of the Buddha? Explain now, what's the nature of Buddha? The nature of the Buddha is the nature of the world. So enlightened state is nothing complicated. It's just the nature of the world. The thus gone one, that means the Buddha, is devoid of nature. Therefore, the world also is devoid of nature. Buddha is empty. Buddha's nature is emptiness. Therefore, the world is emptiness. That is the teaching. Very, very thin. Okay? Do they contemplate on that? Okay, then Buddha also said that Buddha knows that it's very, 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 very thin. No? That's why Buddha said, indeed is this dependent origination. It's really very thin. Buddha also said already, deep, indeed, is dependent origination. It is true, then he said, it is true, not understanding and not penetrating it, that people become entangled by a tangled ball of threads. Although dependent origination or dependent origination is really very, very profound, but if we do not understand it, we do not have penetrating understanding of that, we will remain entangled like a tangled ball of threads. That means we remain confused and stay in samsara. Buddha said that. So with this statement, it tells us, although dependent origination, the teaching is very profound. Initial part, quite simple to understand, because of this therefore come. But later on it becomes very profound. And yet, we cannot give up. We should not give up. Because if we give up understanding dependent origination, then we will remain entangled like a ball of thread. Get stuck, cannot break through. Okay, so this is the end of the presentation today. It's a bit longer than I planned, but since today is the first day, I covered a lot of background information. Any questions? Questions can be asked next week or so. That means when you go back and think about it, then you find that, hey, what is this? Maybe you have taken some notes, and then you read through it, after having read through it at home, then you find, hey, still don't understand, no sense. Then you can raise a question next week. From next week, I'll give you more time for questionings. But meanwhile, any urgent questions that need to be addressed? Quite clear or not? Sometimes no question could mean that you all know already. This sub-soy lah, here so many times already. Or another way would be, another possibility could be that they are born and don't understand what is this, don't know what you're talking about. So whichever, or it could be that, yeah. I mean, the fault could be mine. I mean, it's that I didn't explain it clearly. Whatever it is, so if you have a question, please ask. And I'll try to answer. This is only an introduction, right? Just introduction. Forming the background. So next week we will start off by just very briefly covering the 12 links of dependent origination to show how, again, Buddha used dependent origination to explain the whole life, our whole life of taking, how we are born, how we are reborn again and again in samsara, due to all the causes, the 12 links. Just very briefly, then we go in a little bit deeper to look at dependent origination in a broader perspective from different angles. That's next week. Okay, if there's no immediate questions, let's stop here. So next session on interdependency of all phenomena. So quick dedication, 3 verses on. So when we practice like this, although this is only an introduction, but the fact that we gather here to listen, we have an interest to listen to dependent origination. You may already have some idea as to what is dependent origination, or you may completely be unaware what is the meaning of dependent origination. But the fact that you make effort to come here and spend that 1.5 hours gathered here, it is a virtuous deed. All right? And then we have set the motivation. We have corrected our motivation that we come here not just to pass time, but just to come and learn something in order that we can benefit others in the future. So that is a proper motivation. Then because on that basis, by listening to the Dharma teachings, we have accumulated vast amount of merits. Right? These merits should be dedicated, should be shared with everybody else. Because after all, our motivation at the start is to benefit others. So whatever we have accumulated, we should practice the generosity the perfection of generosity, of sharing it, our merits with all others also, so that they can also benefit. And that's the purpose of dedication. I will teach you how to do the dedication in a more profound way in subsequent weeks. But today we just go through just recite the 3 verses, right? Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. May the supreme view of emptiness that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Okay, so thank you very much. See you next week, hopefully. Thank you.